Yeah, great day to be a Buckeye indeed. Number 2 signing class according to 247 Sports Composite. Ohio State, of course, pushed for a college football playoff berth, and some, I'm sure you included, Claire, would think that they got snubbed this past season, but they're in position to be right back in the mix next year in the Big Ten, both with the recruiting classes they have signed in years prior to this and who they just signed here this today in their 2018 signing class. Very impressive class they put together.
If I could interrupt really quick, Claire and I didn't talk about that at all. We had absolutely no conversations about Ohio State getting snubbed. It didn't bother either one of us. Absolutely not. Didn't talk about it.
Mark, I'm concerned that you need a fire extinguisher for your pants. Is there one nearby? Because they might be on fire.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sorry to cut you off, Mike. Mike is hosting the show, and I just jumped in on him. So I'll let you take it away, Claire and Mike.
Sounds good. Well, obviously, Ohio State continues to bring in a really exceptional class. They're calling it the Supreme 18 for this 2018 recruiting class. And what Urban Meyer came out today to say in his press conference that kind of echoed the sentiments of everyone looking at this class from the outside in is not only were they bringing in these supreme athletes, but they were good athletes as far as a fit for the program. They were academically superior athletes. Petit Frere is a National Honor Society member. And it really looks like it's a team that Urban Meyer can be confident in going forward with leadership. And it's a group that it's looking like some of them might even get some early playing time.
Yeah, with the departure of so many seniors and difference makers that Ohio State's had over the last couple of years, I think you have to be happy with the caliber of player they're bringing in. 24-star recruits in this class. Out of all the positions that were addressed today, what one position on either side of the football are you most impressed with the talent that they brought in here today on National Signing Day?
You know, I think if we are going to call anybody having a win, it's Larry Johnson and that defensive line today. I think with the addition of Javonte Jean-Baptiste, it's looking like, obviously him switching from outside linebacker to defensive end for Ohio State, or it's looking like that would be the fit for him at Ohio State. He does have to put a little muscle on his frame, but if anybody can do it, it's Coach Mickey Marotti and the strength and training program at Ohio State. They've proved that they can do that. And I think Greg Schiano can chalk up a win as far as him coming in late to a lot of these recruits and scooping them out of New Jersey, several of them coming in from New Jersey today. And with Schiano's former relationship at Rutgers, it looks like he leveraged a couple old high school buddies in order to sway some of these guys his way. But and the other big recruiting win for Ohio State today was Greg Schiano staying on board, and the big news of Greg Schiano continuing his commitment at Ohio State. And what better proof than to go out there and scoop up some really amazing last-minute recruits.
So absolutely, the Nicolas Petit Frere, and I believe I guessed that was the pronunciation way back when Urban Meyer started recruiting him, and he was on the board for Florida, Alabama, Notre Dame, Michigan, and I think we all nailed it. I was kind of surprised, but that is the pronunciation of his name. He does need to determine that it's not the University of Ohio State. I believe that's how he referred to Ohio State in the news.
He's a smart guy.
University of Ohio State. So the brotherhood, as they call it there with Ohio State, will get him on track with that first and foremost. But I think Claire alluded to it, and it was talked about during most of the coverage today. So your primary positions, we all think quarterback, and that's certainly the case. Quarterbacks are an elite group, and you need a quarterback to win. Cornerbacks are a rare commodity, a needed commodity. 4 and 5 wides, you can't be exposed on defense. You need multiple guys who can cover. And the other two positions, D ends, you need guys that can come off the edge with speed and put pressure on the quarterback. And then the other one is obviously if you've got to face a ton of guys like that, you need offensive tackles that are quick enough, mobile enough, and strong enough, obviously, have great footwork, hand techniques to get out there in space and protect your quarterback. And this was a rare down year for tackles. If you look at the top 25, 30 players typically from year to year, there's a lot of tackles in there. And this year, it was a rare commodity. So it almost put greater emphasis on finding a tackle. And for Ohio State to get the guy that's considered the best and to pluck him away out of Florida's hands and Alabama, Notre Dame, and Michigan, that was a huge deal for Ohio State to do, because Ohio State was not really on the national radar for all the predictions for the last few weeks for Nicholas Petit-Frere. But obviously Urban Meyer did his magic with that last official visit to Columbus, and he's a Buckeye. So being rated the #1 offensive tackle and coming to Ohio State, I think Urban Meyer's made it a point during his tenure at Ohio State to wrap up like a top 5 recruiting class very early. He's very good about, we're protecting our relationships and our commitments that we've already made. Let's protect this class. He usually doesn't make a run at the last few targets typically, but that was one that he needed for this program this time around. And so that was definitely the story of the day for Ohio State.
I agree. And with the lack of depth that Ohio State had at offensive tackle, it was really, really important. Jamarco Jones off to the NFL. It looks like Max Ray will also be joining him there on the offensive line. And those are the 2 freshmen that, again, Mark called me out for alluding to, that we might even see some early playing time. Truly athletic guys that really could make a difference early on.
So let's talk about quarterback a little bit. No more JT Barrett. You got Dwayne Haskins. You got Tate Martell. And now we signed another quarterback in this recruiting class in Matthew Baldwin. What is the opinion on Baldwin? What's the opinion on the quarterback position moving forward at Ohio State?
Well, I'll go forward with my opinion on the quarterback situation currently. Urban Meyer mentioned today in a press conference that in typical Urban Meyer fashion, that they will make a decision around spring ball time. I absolutely love watching Dwayne Haskins play. He's a very dynamic player. And Mark and I have talked about his riverboat gambler style of play. He's very athletic, has a very strong arm, is very smart when it comes to adapting to the defenses that he sees around him. However, with a little bit of gambler in his veins, it concerns me as a young quarterback, his decision-making skills and where they are right now. And honestly, with Joe Burrow coming back from an injury, he did see a little playing time after that injury. However, Haskins was the clear favorite even after Joe Burrow was supposedly kind of healed up. That being said, Haskins, in my opinion, is the favorite going forward. But as Urban likes to say, competition breeds success, and it is anybody's job. We'll put that in really extreme air quotes.
What you got, Mark?
You know, Urban Meyer, at times he will break down his kind of checklist of what makes a quarterback in his system. And it's a little bit different than what you hear from other coaches. Hopefully I'm coming through. I don't see my return here, but hopefully everybody can hear me.
Yep.
And it starts for Urban Meyer not with arm talent. It doesn't start with athleticism. It doesn't start with a lot of things that we think of an elite quarterback. It starts with ball protection. It starts with leadership. It starts with something that he very much valued in JT Barrett, and that's toughness. So he values all that above. He believes, and you can't argue with a guy with a 90 winning percentage, that he's going to recruit good enough athletes everywhere else on the team, especially in the offense, that he doesn't need over-the-top quarterback play. If he gets it, that's phenomenal. That's icing on the cake. But he needs a guy to protect the ball. And so Dwayne Haskins showed us a lot of what Claire discussed. He made one throw in particular against Michigan that Ohio State fans will remember for a long, long time. They were down 14-0 earlier. At this point, they were down 6. They had the ball. and they had a couple of false start penalties. They were backed up 3rd and 18. And most of us, knowing Urban Meyer, knowing young quarterback, I don't necessarily trust him. Okay, we're at their like 40, 45-yard line. You punt, you pin them deep, and then you see if you can stop them 3 and out, and let's get the ball back. No. Dwayne Haskins ripped a throw on a 3rd and 18 that you see in college football a couple handfuls of time a season, not game to game. You see it in the NFL game to game. Ripped off an extremely impressive throw that got him loose, that got the team going. They scored the game go-ahead touchdown. He went 6 for 7 on the day. We'll see if that sample size, which is extremely limited, plays out over the course of a season if he wins the job. But that little sample size certainly has Ohio State fans juiced for the Dwayne Haskins, the potential of a Dwayne Haskins era at Ohio State.
Odds-on favorite?
He is, I would say, about 80-20. What do you think, Claire?
Agree.
Something in that range. I think it's still a competition. You know, his 7 passes against Michigan did not lock down the job. We don't see what happens at practice, but, you know, Urban Meyer speaks very highly of him, and I think that game experience is going to give him the edge. If there's any doubt in August over, wow, all these guys are impressing us, or nobody's really standing out, I think they would lean against that, what they saw at the big house under pressure.
And as great as Ryan Day is, I'm excited to see what Dwayne Haskins can do as a young quarterback under Ryan Day's tutelage. JT Barrett saw 3 different quarterbacks coaches while he was at his tenure at Ohio State. And, you know, no offense to JT or his development, but, you know, obviously the extenuating circumstances of injuries and fighting for a position could have possibly hampered, and not that he wasn't an incredible success at Ohio State, but maybe didn't live up completely to his physical and athletic potential. And it's exciting to see maybe under Ryan Day what Haskins can do. Moldable. He's moldable is what I'm saying.
So what are the chances that Matt Baldwin ever actually suits up for Ohio State and plays, you all think? I mean, if this Dwayne Haskins era actually takes off, I mean, what do you think the chances are that we have a 4-star pro-style quarterback from Texas ending up as the starting quarterback at Ohio State in the next 4 years?
I don't know if you remember Ohio State in 2014 having 2 quarterbacks go down, one right before and one during at the end. There's anything is possible in my mind at this point. Before, I would have said the chances are slim to none, but I can't write anything off anymore.
Mark?
Urban Meyer was in the final 3 or 4 for a guy named Watson. Yeah, I don't know. I saw him play a little bit the last couple of years.
He never won a Heisman, Mark, you know?
Should have won a Heisman. Yeah, there's a video on that if you search Mark Rogers TV. But Urban Meyer, basically, what is interesting about that recruiting effort is as soon as you see the term pro-style quarterback, you initially think, oh, this guy's Tom Brady. He's not Vince Young. And Urban Meyer likes the quarterback who can threaten with his legs, who can run the RPO and really threaten a defense. That's been his MO since going back to Utah. We don't think of Alex Smith as being some great athlete, but he actually is. He's a really good runner, and especially was when he was 20 years old. And going back to the Utah days, that has been Urban Meyer's MO. The story that Urban Meyer addressed, and this was sometime late in the, obviously, just after the early signing period, he said they were prepping for Penn State. And Urban Meyer, like any elite coach, is tunnel visioned, and all that mattered at midnight the night before the Penn State game was Penn State, and do we have 3rd and 3? Do we have that checked off? And what we're going to do, you know, inside the red zone on 4th and a yard and a half. And Ryan Day basically said, you have to watch this kid. tonight, you're going to sit with me for the next 20 minutes and watch his tape. And Urban Meyer's like, what are you talking about? I'm watching Penn State right now. And Ryan Day's like, no, I want you to watch this kid. So they checked him out. Ryan Day was the guy that, led that recruiting effort and just believe in that kid. So just, again, we get wrapped up in the rankings and the ratings of these kids, and I think his is decent. It's been a while since I've looked at it, like top 30, top 40, something like that. JT Barrett was the 33rd ranked quarterback for his class. So things happen, things change, and guys produce that we don't expect, and other guys who are 5 stars don't turn out to be quite as good as what we had thought.
I think especially true for quarterback position.
Yeah, definitely. I think, for quarterback position specifically, you see it at the pro level all the time, but at the college level as well. You never really know what you have in a college quarterback or a pro quarterback until you throw them into the fire. And we saw a little bit of what Dwayne Haskins can do. It'll be interesting to see if he does end up being the guy, what he can do in a larger sample size. Claire, Mark, either one of you, bigger scale picture here for this 2018 class. Huge success, second-ranked class in 247 Sports Composite. ESPN has them ranked just as high. Anybody that Ohio State really missed on that you all, looked at this class and felt like, man, I really wish we had this player, or I really wish we had this player? Or do you look at it and just say, look, second-ranked class, all good. We're going to be in great shape moving forward here under Urban Meyer.
Oh, wow. There is a handful of guys, and I'm at a loss right now, but there are a handful of guys. There are 2 in particular that they lost to Georgia on the defensive side of the ball that they could have grabbed. And of course, they escape me right now. But Georgia won out on a couple of recruiting battles with Ohio State. But really, now that it hits me, the one that they missed out on that they needed was keeping the #1 player in the state of Ohio, and that's Jackson Carman, who had committed to Ohio State, and he got away and went to Clemson. And Ohio State fans kind of counted on him because he had been committed for a while. And the top players in Ohio, unless they're snubbed by Ohio State, usually stay in Ohio. And so there's kind of a given there to a certain extent. And if you look at the top 8 to 12 players in the state of Ohio, that's really where Urban Meyer's focus is. And beyond that, they're more mid-tier Big Ten players and then MAC players after that. So he's really focused on that top 8 to 12 and to lose the top player in the state. And at the time, Urban Meyer and his staff, knowing that it was a weak class for tackles and that they had the #1 guy wrapped up and he got away from them to Clemson, that one hurt, but that was an early signing period deal. But that was the one that got away for me.
And Urban Meyer alluded today to the Jackson Carman situation a little bit, because I don't think he wanted to give him any more attention than was necessary, because I think someone asked something along those lines. And he said, it just became very clear to us that he was not going to be a fit for the program. And I think some of the comments that Jackson had made on social media and a few things back and forth kind of turned Urban Meyer sour towards Jackson. And that's not just sour grapes coming from an Ohio State fan, like, oh, we didn't want you anyway. I think he would have probably still played for Ohio State, but it definitely turned the tides. Also, I think there was a corner that left after Kerry Combs decided to go to the NFL, and that is escaping me, Kerry Combs decided to go coach for Mike Vrabel. So it's one of those things that tends to happen with coaching changes, and I think that's one of the things that Urban Meyer used to get Schiano to stay.
I got 2 more for you. So you might be thinking, Claire, of Jaden Woodby, who wound up at Florida State, and he is a product out of California. Tremendous cornerback who got away, but for a long time he was locked in on Ohio State. It shut down the recruiting to a certain extent. We got our Florida State guy coming on a little bit later, Mike, and he told me the story last week that basically Jaden Woodby went on Twitter to say, I grew up a Florida State fan. Florida State's not even recruiting me. And as soon as some of the Willie Taggart staff got a hold of that, they really went after him and got him to come to Florida State. And then the other one, I actually did an interview that you can find on my channel here with BJ Foster, who's the #1 safety in the nation. So Ohio State had the #1 safety committed out of Texas, and he flipped to the University of Texas here in the last 6 weeks to 2 months, and then signed with Texas during the early signing period. So a ridiculous class could have been just crazy ridiculous.
And the individual player ratings end up being higher. And again, as Urban Meyer mentioned today, about the fit within the program, the fit with who they wanted as far as, the kind of family they come from, their academics, their work ethic, their ability to understand coming in that, you have been the top stud in your state or at your school. But when you come to Ohio State, it's ground zero, and you're going to work for every single inch that you climb on that ladder to success.
So a really successful Ohio State signing class, I think we'd say.
Very.
Is that the conclusion we're going to draw? Really?
I think we're going to draw that conclusion.
All right.
Well, Claire, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Plug your site, please, for us here.
Absolutely. So if you just go to theozone.net, you can find all kinds of goodies over there with my pals at the Ozone. My pal Joe Dexter and I will eventually get back to recording a podcast together called Oh Hail No. And you can find me on Twitter with lots of sarcasm and sports nuggets and unusual, horrible hot takes and maybe a few fitness things thrown in there.
Claire,
yeah.
Hey, Claire, for the Ohio State illiterate, I'm going to leave it up to you. It's your choice whether you're going to explain that name or just let some people simmer on that one and figure it out. I love that name.
I thank you. I will happily explain it. So that team up north, Michigan, who us Buckeye fans refuse to name like Voldemort, it is Hail to the Victors is Michigan's fight song, the name of their fight song. So Joe and I deliberated over a couple different names for our podcast, and it hit me one day, I think probably in the shower, and ended up being Oh Hail No was the winner.
Hard to argue with that, Mark, right?
I just, I was just flabbergasted when she hit me with that. I was like, I give up. It took me like 6 weeks to decide on Mark Rogers TV, so I'm not a real clever soul here. So,
we'll definitely have to make sure we check that out, Claire.
Yes, at Buckeye Claire on Twitter, Claire with no E.
There you go. Buckeye Claire on Twitter, no E, ozone.net. Go check out all that stuff and the Oh Hail No podcast as well, covering the Buckeyes. Claire, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.